Good morning.
Good morning, good afternoon.
Are you still in Hawaii, Amber?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so it's very, very early.
Yes.
We feel sorry for you. So, anything that we should be talking about? The beeper, did the beeper work when with the tape on it or whatever?
Yeah, beeper works fine. Beeper, no issues. Yeah, I wore it out a little bit. I had some. Is there anyone else joining? Cody?
No, I think Cody couldn't do today. He would like to join us next time if he can, but depending on what his schedule is.
Okay. Okay, so I can just get right into the first beep.
All right, let's do it.
Okay, so I haven't read over all of my notes yet, so I hope everything's okay. I think it will be, but you might have to bear with me a little bit.
No problem.
Okay, beep number one. I was on the couch, sofa, thinking about the beep. I had forgotten that I turned on the beeper when I suddenly remembered it was nearby and triggered. I was thinking about the potential of it beeping and what I would log or what I would remember if it went off, and it did. So I feel like I was in a very dreamy, condensed kind of manner. I considered the present moment, that I was lying on the couch after work, just being lazy, contemplating making a grocery list. And at the moment, right before the beep, I innerly said to myself with words, I was, sort of as in a I was ... kind of manner, as if imagining the first words in this very entry, which actually does begin with I was.
And when you say just before the beep, do you mean caught in flight by the beep, as best you can tell? So I want to make sure that I want to make sure that we're in agreement about what the phrase just before means.
Oh, just like immediately before the beep, like the instant before the sound began.
Okay, the last undisturbed moment, sometimes we call that, or sometimes we call it interrupted by the leading edge of the beep. Or,
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. All right. That's what I figured, but every now and then you got to make sure about that.
Sure, yeah.
So at what we would call the moment of the beep, or what you would call just before the beep, or what we might call at the leading edge of the beep, or whatever, you're saying to yourself, I was, as if you're going to write down an entry into about a beep.
Yep. That's correct. Just imagine yourself staring at a blank page, and you know you're going to begin an entry about something, and all the other entries have basically started with I was. So the first words that automatically sort of come to mind are I was.
Okay.
So I was thinking about the beep, and I was like, oh, what if it goes off right now? What would I write? And then the next thing that comes to mind is that I was blah, 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 blah.
And is the rest of that there, or is it that portion there, or we haven't gotten there yet?
No, but it's just the way in my head I would characterize writing the words I was.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so I'm gathering, I think you said that you were speaking those words. Is that right?
Correct.
As opposed to imagining yourself writing them or something?
Correct. Yeah.
In your own naturally inflected voice?
Yep. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. No sort of significant intonation or something. It just I was.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you've been using the word speaking. We've sometimes made the distinction between speaking and hearing. Is this I'm speaking these words rather than hearing myself play these words back?
Yeah, more speaking than hearing. More speaking than hearing.
Okay.
Almost as if, oh, well, not really like writing, but I would definitely say speaking if I had to choose, but in the most passive manner possible, if that makes sense.
The most passive manner of speaking?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's not like you're trying to direct somebody with something. It's just like I was
Inner mumbling, I guess you could sort of say.
And is there anything else in your experience? So I understand the context is I was wondering what I would write if the beeper went on. And is that context present to you, or is that what has spawned this experience, and the experience at the moment is just I was? Or isn't that?
Well,
Doesn't that
I
question?
was giving you the context because that was just prior. So right before the words um, I was thinking, oh, what if the beep went off right now? Then I would, and what was I doing? I was just lying on the couch, staring into space. I had been contemplating, I was going to go to the grocery store, so I was contemplating a list of things that I needed to get. And, and then sort of automatically, I just went to, like, as if I was about to write an entry into this little, I have everything logged in the same file here. So I was just thinking of if I went to the file and I was about to log something right now, and then it was sort of just, it was kind of automatic. It just, doing that came to mind, and the first thing that sort of played out was, I was.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm gathering that really at the precise moment interrupted by the beep, the only thing that's really in your experience is the I was. That's
correct.
That's
that's
set in motion by this desire to wonder what you might write or whatever. But
yeah. But I didn't get beyond the I was, and then the beep went off, and then I was like, well, I guess I'll find out now.
Right. All right, I'm good. You good?
Okay.
I just wanted to ask, you had mentioned earlier, you described I was as inner mumbling. Would you say that the I was clear, like it was very clear I was, or would you say it's kind of like, I think in the day one, we had that kind of, you were trying to pronounce a word, and it kind of came out like, ugh.
Oh, no, it was clear. It was
Okay.
clear. Yeah. But more on that later, I believe, in one of the upcoming beeps.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm good.
Number two.
Okay. I was reading a magazine article on my laptop, and the portion of the present sentence was, we stopped paying attention to what's happening around us. The moment of the beep was right after the word attention. So the beep happened in mid-sentence here, or close to the end of the sentence. I was focused on taking in the information in the same manner one might be when listening to someone tell you something interesting. The sentence was a quote from an interview. Although I was innerly hearing my own voice as I read the words, I had an awareness that it was someone else who had said them, so I automatically engaged in intonation in the manner in which I imagined them to have said the sentence. I felt remarkably similar to how I imagined myself to feel while listening to the words of someone else telling me something interesting.
So I understand that the center of this experience is I'm hearing myself speak the words, we stop paying attention to what happened around us.
Correct.
And that you have used the word hearing. I'm hearing myself say this. This is a hearing experience, not a speaking experience?
It's difficult to describe. When I'm reading something, I don't know, I guess it sort of feels somewhere between me speaking the words and me hearing the words.
Okay. So let's not talk about reading in general. Let's see whether we can stick to just this one
Okay.
instance that may or may not be typical of reading in general.
I believe hearing is more accurate.
So that would make this experience somewhat different from I was. Is that right?
Yeah. Yes.
And different in the sense that the I was mostly a speaky kind of a thing, and we stopped paying attention is more a heary kind of a thing.
It could be.
Not
See,
trying to
when I
talk
think of when I think of hearing, I think of something that's sort of involuntary, but I could stop reading at any moment, and then I wouldn't apprehend the sound of the words in any way whatsoever. So
that is clearly true in the external world, but that doesn't necessarily have to apply in the internal world. So,
okay.
So there's no doubt about it that your neurons are producing these words. The words are on the page or on the screen, but you are in some way creating them for yourself. There's no doubt about that. It's your neurons doing that. The question is, are you doing that experientially in the manner of speaking? I'm speaking what I'm reading, or in the manner of hearing. I'm hearing my voice, and
I've always thought of silent reading more in the line of being related to speaking rather than hearing. But I don't know. I almost feel like this was more like hearing the words, especially because it was a quote. Because when somebody says something, you hear them. You don't speak. So that's more in line with actually hearing. Because yeah, as I said, it was a quote from an interview. So I feel like I imagined myself hearing the person saying that. But because I wasn't actually hearing them saying that, I had to use my own, it was in my own sort of voice as I read the words.
So the notion of reading is a complicated thing. So let me give a slight lecture here in the realm of bracketing or presuppositions about reading. So we've actually beeped quite a few people who have been reading. And what we have found is that most people actually don't hear or speak the words at all when they're reading them. Much to their own surprise, they're gleaning the meaning, but more commonly they're just seeing a picture of what was going on in their head, as if somebody was creating a video with no words whatsoever. And that comes as a surprise to people. People think more or less like what you just said, that they speak the words when they're reading, and if it's dialogue, then they hear the other voice or whatever. And that is, in fact, sometimes true. So I'm not trying to say this is not what happened for you. Mm-hmm. But what I'm trying to say is, well, let's not let our self-theories or our theories about the way reading is color what happens in the actual experience. So this is another bracketing of presuppositions effort lecture, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
That. So the question is always, what are the characteristics of Phil's experience at the moment of this beep, regardless of what might be usual for Phil, or might be usual across people, or might be thought to be usual across people by Phil, or might be thought to be usual across people by everybody, or whatever. Mm-hmm. We're trying to set all that stuff aside and go just at this experience. Mm-hmm. And it's a trick to do that. I mean, you have to
look at I was honestly hearing my voice play out those words. It wasn't a purely visual experience. I'm very confident in that.
Okay. And I definitely want to make it clear that I'm not trying to talk you into or out of anything.
Right.
What I'm trying to do is to focus in on one experience at a time, one of Phil's experiences at a time, regardless of the rest of it, as if the rest of the world didn't exist, basically.
Yeah.
And that's obviously not possible, but we can approximate it, I think. So what I'm gathering is, as best we can say, at the moment of this beep, I'm reading these words on the screen, and my experiences of doing this in my voice inflected as the other guy might have said it, and that this seems more like a hearing experience than it seems like a speaking experience. It's more like I'm hearing my voice speaking than I am speaking it.
Yeah, yes. I think that's pretty much as accurate as we can get it.
Okay. And the reason, I guess I've said this probably before, the reason that we do this process on multiple occasions is that we have to have this kind of a conversation so that maybe sometime in a future beep you'll be reading again, and then at that moment you'll be more interested in what your own phenomenon is. That's really the hope, is to get Phil interested in, well, what the hell do I actually really do in this?
Yeah, to revisit this reading situation. Yeah.
And so I'm not saying we should go on and read again. We can do that or not, but the object of the whole enterprise really is to get Phil interested in his experience as it happens at particular moments, but as it actually happens, setting aside what seems plausible or reasonable or likely or whatever. Mm-hmm. And that's a skill that maybe it's a taste that you have to acquire. So is there anything else going on at this particular moment?
No, I think that's as much as I can. That's as best as I can describe it.
So I'm reading with comprehension. I know what it is that I'm reading, and I'm hearing myself say these words inflected as if the other guy was saying them.
Yeah.
Then I think I'm good, unless Amber's got a question.
I'm good.
Yeah.
Number 3.
Okay, this one, it was a bit late. I had a bit of trouble with this one. So I was watching the film Get Back, which is a documentary about the Beatles and their later years. They were trying to make a film about doing a sort of live album, but it never actually happened. So it was showing the famous rooftop concert. They did this concert on a rooftop of the recording studio in London in 1969. And the song I've Got a Feeling was just beginning. Leading up to the beep, I recognized the song from the guitar intro, and innerly, it's like I could hear Paul McCartney sing the first line, I've got a feeling. And then at the moment, just prior to the beep, the actual first line of the song began. And I watched McCartney and the rest of the band play the song. There was visual and auditory focus on what I was seeing and hearing.
So I'm not 100% sure I understood that. So do you innerly hear Paul McCartney's voice singing I've Got a Feeling before he actually sings it?
Yes, but I would say that was at the moment just prior to the moment before the beep.
Okay.
And then at the very instant right before the beep, he started the actual line, and I was watching it and I was listening to it.
And so at the moment of the beep, is it the case that you're sort of watching what's going on the TV, carried along by the TV?
Yeah.
And that's basically it?
That's basically it, yeah. I think this one, well, I don't know if any of them are boring, but I think this one is relatively simple. I was watching TV. I was listening and I was watching.
And what's happening is that the Beatles are starting to play I've got a feeling on the roof in their rooftop concert. Mm-hmm. And are you are you attending to any particular aspect of that? You said watching and hearing. Are you more into the hearing or more into the watching, or is it just these guys are playing, I'm watching it, I'm hearing it?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. At the time on the screen, it showed the viewpoint of 3 separate cameras, and I was focused on the view presented furthest to the right, my right, on the screen, which I believe was the one that was closest to Paul McCartney.
And
so it was kind of like this, watching.
Okay. And so I'm understanding that as a fact of the universe, my gaze is at the right-hand panel that's being presented.
Yeah.
And presumably the object of presenting 3 panels was so that the viewer could choose from among these panels and zero in on this one.
Yeah.
And at the moment, you happen to be behind door number 3, so to speak. And,
yeah. Yes.
Okay. And is there anything in particular in that panel that is drawing your attention, or is it just I had a choice of 3 and I'm in?
I think because it was the start of the song, and I knew that I knew he was going to start singing. I was looking at him, whereas in the other panels, it showed the band from further away, or another member of the band.
So it's fair to say that you were sort of zooming in on Paul McCartney.
Yeah.
But not on a particular aspect of Paul McCartney, the shirt that he's wearing or the bass that he's playing or whatever.
No.
Okay. Then I'm happy with that. And I would say that is a pretty typical watching TV kind of a beat.
Yeah.
But there are alternatives to be had. I mean, some people will say, the TV screen, but I was really interested in that Paul was wearing an orange shirt, and it was the orange that I was interested in, and something like that. But
I know people who get very distracted while watching television, and they even have trouble watching movies, and yeah, sometimes I focus on things that are not relevant to the plot or what they're trying to focus your attention on. So yeah. Okay.
All right, number 4. Sam, do you have questions about that?
Yeah, I had a question about the hearing portion.
Yeah.
So you said you were hearing the TV, you're hearing the actual line of I've Got a Feeling. Are you hearing that in Paul McCartney's voice because he's singing it? Or are you hearing it, and is there anything more to say about that?
Wait, sorry. Are you talking about the instant in the film where he started singing the song?
Yes,
Or...
yeah, you've mentioned that you were watching TV and you were hearing the TV as well. Is there anything else to say about your hearing?
No.
What was coming from the TV?
No.
Okay.
Nothing else to say.
All right, number 4.
Okay. Oh, no. Yeah, now we're moving on to today. I had just locked my bike and was crossing. So I went downtown, and I had just locked my bike, and I was crossing a pedestrian street, which is the main street, to go into my bank. Before the beep, I was innerly repeating the combination of Evestina's lock, which I had just used to secure the bike. I hadn't used it in some time, and I was trying to better consolidate the combination in memory. As I began to cross the street, I innerly said it with words 147, and then almost automatically I began to repeat it a second time. I was a bit apprehensive about having to explain the device to a representative inside the bank. And during the second repeat of 147, at the moment right before the beep, I was also saying to myself clearly with words, should I wear the beeper? So I have a little more on this because I think it's kind of interesting. It was like the innerly saying of the 147 repeat had a ballistic nature, sort of like I started it And that was good enough to set the whole sequence in motion. So midway through, I could just let the rest play out and move on to something more important, which was doing something or not with the beeper as I approached the front door of the bank. It was like it turned from inner speaking to inner hearing, and the speaking transferred to the should I wear the beeper? It's a bit complicated, so ask me to clarify anything.
Okay. So I think I got the picture more or less. We'll see. So at the moment of the beep, there are two streams of words going on. 147 and
Yep.
should I wear the beeper?
Yep. Yeah.
Now so let me give the bracketing lecture first. Because you said that the 147 was changing from being inner speaking to being inner hearing. And that may very well be a good characteristic of your experience. I'm not trying to talk you out of that. But what I want us to do is not fall into the trap of saying, well, I couldn't possibly be innerly speaking two different things at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's not true. It is possible to innerly speak multiple things. Whether that's possible for you or likely for you is another story. But I'm confident that people can innerly speak two different things at the same time.
In this instance, I do feel like it sort of went from well, maybe it was always inner hearing, but because it was a repeat. So I saw the combination when I actually locked the lock, and I probably said it to myself. And then as I was leaving the bike, walking across the street to the bank, I just kind of repeated it to myself, 147. And then I was sort of in a mode of just repeating it to myself to memorize it a bit better. And then, yeah, I started with the 1, 4, and then I was getting close to the bank, and then I was like, should I wear the beeper? But I could still sort of hear the 4, 7 play out.
Okay. And I guess I still haven't figured out the hearing and speaking, and it's possible that we're making more of a distinction between hearing and seeing than is possible.
Mm.
But I guess what I guess I want to know is, as best you can say, is your experience of the 4-7 at the moment of the beep the same or different as your experience of should I wear the beeper?
Different. Because should I wear the beeper was clearly, I remember it as clearly inner speaking.
Okay.
I saw the door of the bank, and then, I wasn't focused visually, but as I got closer to the bank, it just kind of struck me like, oh, should I wear the beeper? And I said it to myself. I spoke it innerly.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm quite confident in that. But as I did, the 147 was still sort of in the background.
Okay.
It was like there was kind of an overlap.
And in the background, in the nature of Phil's voice, whether spoken or heard. So it's not like I've just abstracted out the voice and gone to somehow presenting the numbers to myself, 4-7, with no voice involved. There's still a voice involved in this?
That's how I remember it. It's very difficult for me to reimagine it, but that's how I remember it.
Okay. Well, it is the kind of a thing that it might not be possible for you to imagine it in this setting, something that actually took place while it was happening, which is why we do these things the way we do, asking you to capture it as best you can right at the moment.
I startled myself a bit because it was like I was speaking two things at the same time, and I wasn't aware that I could do that, or yeah, I wasn't sure how these two things could be happening simultaneously, and it really struck me at the moment, but it's very difficult to remember it or reimagine it.
Well, that's the kind of report that leads me to believe that the reports are true. I mean, when people are surprised at something and say, well, this is what happened, doesn't seem like it's possible, but that's what happened.
Mm-hmm.
That leads me to think, well, they're telling me what happened, because why would they tell me that?
I'm trying my best.
Right. The inner life does not follow the same rules as the external world. It really doesn't. That's just the way it is. And quite a bit of psychological theory and inner speaking theory and whatever presumes that the inner life is the same as external life, and it's a faulty assumption.
I completely agree. Yeah.
Okay, so there's some concern about wearing the beeper, which led you to say to yourself, should I wear the beeper? And is that concern present to you in any way, or is that carried by the sentence and that's it?
I would say that it's carried by the sentence and that's it. I didn't have I wasn't really nervous about wearing the beeper into the bank. It was just a realization that I had the beeper on, and that I might want to take this off if I'm going to walk up to the representative, and then I might feel like I have to tell them what this is, even though I don't know if that's what would really happen. Now that I give it more thought, I don't think they would care very much, but
I don't think they would, but that doesn't stop you from the inner experience from wondering.
Right.
All right, I think I'm good. Emery, you
yeah. So you're saying two things at once. Was one stronger than the other? About the same?
The should I wear the beeper was stronger than the 147.
Okay, and our numbers are 80, 20, 60, 40, 90, 10.
I would say 80-20, 80, 70, 30.
Okay.
From 70, 30 to 80, 20.
Yeah, just so we can get an idea of where it's at. Numbers don't really matter, but okay. I'm good.
Okay, number 5.
Okay. I was cycling home from downtown, which is a ride that consists pretty much entirely of a climb of about 375 feet in about a mile. And it was the first time this year I had cycled that climb, and I was nearly there. Right before the beep, I had innerly said to myself with words, I should do this every day. And after that, I innerly responded to my own statement, saying, again with words, but then only my legs would be strong. And there seemed to be a dialogic kind of aspect to this sequence. And the intonation of the first sentence exemplified an exclamation, like, I should do this every day. The second was intoned as though it was a response from maybe a skeptic. Both sentences seemed to be complete, but somehow much faster than if I had actually said them out loud. Somehow complete, but almost instantaneous.
I saw the cat paying attention from the background there. Pointed on action. So by instantaneous, does that mean that your words sound fast to you, or are you saying, well, they must have been fast?
The memory of my inner speaking was that it was somehow very fast, not necessarily instantaneous, but fast, faster than I could possibly say it out loud.
So I guess I got to give another lecture here. So it's possible. So the word fast has several different meanings to it. So it's possible that what you could have experienced was yourself, I should do this every day. Like the words come out rapid fire, Or it's possible that fast means I should do this every day, but somehow, even though the words seem like they're coming out at the normal speed, if there was a clock involved, it would have happened at in a shorter amount of time. So the question is, do the words seem rapidly spoken, or does it seem like the whole speaking just somehow happened fast, even though it didn't seem rapid at the time?
I would say the latter. Yeah. It wasn't that I was just innerly saying it. I don't know. It's difficult. I don't know. See, I know that when you speak, you join all the words together, and it sort of comes out like one. I should do this all the time. And if you were to look at an audio, the waveform of that, you would not see where I begins and I ends, and should begins and where should ends, et cetera, et cetera. So it is kind of melded together anyway. I should.
So let me see whether I can do a better job of asking the question or stating the alternatives. One is I experience the words as rapidly coming out. And the other is I experience myself as accomplishing this speaking in a short amount of time, even though the words themselves didn't seem like they were rapid.
Yeah, I would again say the latter. I experienced myself accomplishing this speaking in a significantly short amount of time.
Okay. And so there's two sentences as said in two different ways, one exclamatory and the other skeptically, or something, I guess you said. Is that
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And is it possible to say where the beep occurs in that, or does it seem like they're fast enough that the beep just gets them both?
Did I write did I mention where the beep went off? Right before the beep, I had innerly said sometimes. Yeah, so I guess the instant right before the beep, I was saying to myself, but then only my legs would be strong. But the moment right before that, I had said to myself, I should do this every day. So it just depends on how much time, like if the beep is here, then I go back this much. If this is going back in time, if I go back this much, it was, but then only my legs would be strong. And if I go back this much more, that would include, I should do this every day.
So that's plausible and quite possibly true. I'm not trying to talk you out of anything here, as is usual, but it's all, so what we call a moment, what is the experiential moment, and sometimes the experiential moment is somewhat longer and sometimes it's shorter. And so does it seem like these are all of one moment? The speaking and the exclamation and the skeptical reply, or does it seem like, well, there's one and then there's another? You happen to catch me in the second one.
Yeah, I guess it sort of comes down to like what is a moment. Yeah, that's sort of as best as I can put it.
Okay. And I'm happy with that. I'm not. There's no clear demarcation between.
Yeah. Like, are you asking me like for the instantaneous moment right before the beep?
So let me try to be totally explicit about what I'm asking about. So what we have acknowledged that that inner speaking doesn't follow the rules of the external world. And so what I think we have understood ourselves to be saying is these words, I experience them as happening at sort of a normal pace, but they happen, but somehow they started and ended it faster than they would have in the real world. And so now I'm wondering whether that should be extended to, well, I said this sentence, I said this sentence, and in the real world, there would have to be this sentence and then this sentence. But in the experiential world, it could be that there was the sentence and the reply, and that was all sort of one experiential piece. But I'm also recognizing that that question might make more sense in the abstract world than it does in Phil's experience. So you should feel.
Yeah, I don't know if I could describe it as one single piece, but sort of two portions of an ongoing stream of thought, sort of. And it did feel very conversational, like I put the statement, I should do this every day, on the table, and then immediately what comes to mind is, but then only my legs would be strong.
Okay. And I took you to be saying that those were both complete sentences.
Yes. Yes.
So we're not condensing these and saying every day, and every day stands for I should do this every day, and then responding legs. It's not that. These are entire
sentences. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But there seemed to be some sort of fast aspect to them. And it's quite difficult for me to decide if it was that I was just inwardly saying it fast, or I experienced the whole sentences rapidly. And I tend to go more with the latter. So there was it wasn't like, but then only my legs would be strong. It wasn't like that. Okay. But it just seemed to, I apprehended the entire sentence, but in a time that I feel like would be considerably faster than if I had said it out loud.
Right.
I don't know. It's difficult. I didn't feel like I was saying it super, super quickly, but there was something about it that it happened over a period of time, the period of time during which I experienced that thought, that I said that seemed to be somehow shorter than it would have been in real life if I had said it out loud.
Got it. And that turns out not to be terribly uncommon.
Okay.
And it's also very difficult to discern that, because you almost need to have like an external clock, but the external clock is not part of your experience.
It was somehow like time was warped, and I can do these things. Like there's an episode of Star Trek where they're speeded up and they do all sorts of things, and the rest of the rest of the world is happening at normal speed, but the way that they're portrayed, the rest of the world is happening in slow motion. So I felt like it feels like I was the speeded up version.
Well, in this particular case, there actually is an experiential clock involved, because you're bicycling, and so you've got the pedals and the action and whatever. And so you may have some sense of, I experienced myself as saying this at normal speed, and yet my pedals only went that far. And if I had said it out loud, the pedals would have made a complete rotation or something like that.
Yeah, I had I had one more sentence that's on the next page here that I didn't see. And I said there wasn't much awareness of my visual surroundings, if any, nor of my exhaustion, although I would say my exhaustion provided an underlying foggy sort of feeling. I was quite out of breath, and it was difficult to concentrate, I guess, although I wasn't really concentrating on anything.
Okay. Then I think I'm good. Amber?
I'm good.
Number 6.
Yeah. Okay. I was watching an otherwise completely sun-bathed mountain being entirely overtaken by the shade of a huge, very fast-moving cloud. It was quite interesting, actually. I was visually following the leading edge of an extension of the jagged shape of the cloud's shadow face as it moved across the mountain from a snowy region to a rocky region on the face of the mountain. At the moment before the beep, the extension's shadow had just crossed into the rocky region, and I noticed how it was impossible to continue to follow it because there was not enough contrast to be able to see the shadow on the dark rocks. I felt as if I was saying to myself, can't see it anymore, but without words.
So I'm watching a shadow, and I'm noticing that it's going from the snowy into the rocks,
Mm-hmm.
and that it's difficult to see the shadow in the rocks.
Yep. So the shadow had just crossed onto the rocky region, and then beep. That's when the beep happened.
Okay. And then there's the can't see it anymore portion. Yep. And you said something about it. It's as if I said it without words.
Yeah. Just right after I turned the beep off, and it was like I said, I feel like I had just said can't see it anymore, but I didn't say that. I didn't innerly speak those words.
Okay. So let's see how far we can tease this apart. So it's possible to have the idea of can't see it anymore present without any words or speaking at all.
Yeah.
And it's also possible to have a sense of having spoken, sense of speaking, but without any words. So I feel myself to be speaking, and I actually know what I'm speaking. I'm speaking, I can't see it anymore, even though I don't experience the words. So those are two fairly experientially different things. One is I understand the meaning, sort of purely the meaning is present to me, can't see it anymore. And the other is I understand myself to be speaking, even though the words aren't present.
Yeah.
The question is there the experience of speaking, or is this a meaning present without speaking?
Oh, that's very, very difficult. It's very difficult. I understand the distinction that you're trying to make. It had just crossed into that rocky region, and then I don't know.
So that's totally fair. And what I would say as a general procedure about the way these things work, if we have to talk about a distinction, sort of a new distinction, or a distinction that might be unusual to you or whatever, then I don't think it's actually, many times it's not possible for you to make that distinction. If we have to tease apart this distinction, then it's too late for you to have made it, because you would have had to have known that distinction at the moment of the beep to have been able to apply it adequately.
That's right. Yeah, I can't. In all fairness, I can't go back now and remember.
And I'm totally happy with that. And but now we made that distinction.
Yep.
On later beeps, then if there's a distinction to be made about, well, I have this meaning, I know exactly what I'm thinking. I'm thinking, can't see it anymore. And there either was the experience of producing words, even though those words weren't there, or there wasn't.
Yes.
Then Phil will be in a different position to be able to make those distinctions.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. I might make a note of that. Well, I don't want to, I remember what we were saying about having presuppositions, but it's a very, very, I think it's a quite subtle distinction. So So it's
It is and it isn't. It is and it isn't. So I have gathered from our conversation today that Phil pretty much knows what it means to innerly speak. Whether his inner speaking is the same as somebody else's inner speaking, that's an entirely different story. But Phil is confident when he said, "I'm inner speaking, but only my legs would be strong," and he can make subtle distinctions about that. And going into the bank, should I wear the beep or whatever that was. He knows what the words were, and he can talk about sentences and condensation or whatever. These are phenomenon that present themselves to Phil, seems to me. And now we're making one more distinction about that, which may or may not be a distinction that is possible for Phil to make about his inner experience. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. We'll see about that.
If I had to go with one way or the other in terms of this distinction, I would say that I apprehended can't see it anymore without the feeling of having spoken it. There was just something can't see it anymore about this experience that didn't involve the feeling. It included those words, but it didn't include the feeling of, or the experience of having spoken them in any way whatsoever. If I would have to choose, I would choose that there was no actual speaking involved. But I'm not so confident on that.
So that raises one more distinction, because the way these things can happen. So it's possible for the words to be there, but not spoken. And it's possible for the words to be there spoken. And it's possible for the meaning to be there without being spoken. And it's possible for the meaning to be there without being in words. All those things are possible. So I can have the meaning. I can't see it anymore. That can be present to me. I'm thinking, if I put it into words, it would be, quote, I can't see it anymore, unquote. But I'm not speaking those words. I'm not experiencing those words at all. But the meaning is present to me. That's a common thing. We call that unsymbolized thinking. I'm engaged in this directly conscious thinking, but there aren't any words. I can tell you what it is. I can't see it anymore.
Yes.
But there's no words. But it's also possible for words to be present with or without meaning. I mean, all these things are really separate from each other when you get careful about looking at it.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. It's complicated. It's complicated. Yeah. And I really appreciate your skill in making these distinctions, because I wouldn't realize them otherwise.
Yeah. And so what I would say about this, and this I guess would be a you could take it as a twisting your arm or whatever, putting these things on the web or something, but I don't mean it as that. But it is the case that for people to grasp, so I can write in a book, look, I could write a paragraph about, look, and I have many times actually, but there's a distinction to be made about words that are there and words that aren't there, and meaning that's there and meaning that's not there. But without watching the struggle between Phil and Russ and Amber to get these things out there, that's a sort of a lifeless kind of a thing. There's something about the Phil and Russ and Amber struggling to get it right, and the limits of that you can only witness by watching Phil and Russ and Amber do it. The transcript doesn't do it. Characterization doesn't do it.
Right.
Do it. And so I'm not trying to twist your arm in the slightest. I'm telling you. You asked me what's at stake here, and I'm trying to tell you this is the kind of a thing that is at stake.
Yeah. I don't know if you heard that, but
Cat thought I was right.
yeah. Ouch. Okay. Soon.
All right. So that's 6. We can do this again?
Yeah.
Sounds like a plan.
Yes.
So I would say you're doing great. This is it is a struggle.
Yeah.
The struggle is important. It seems to me that you're engaged in the struggle, that you're not trying to make things up. And so I've got antennae out there that are trying to determine whether somebody's shining me on or just going along with me or whatever. And those antennae are happy.
Okay, good.
So I'm happy.
Yeah. No, I'm trying. I'm trying my best.
That's all we can do. All right. So maybe we'll see each other on Friday, and maybe we won't. And you're going to let us know tomorrow. And
Yep, as soon as I can. Well, both of you will probably wake up to a message from me. So, yeah.
Fair enough.
Tomorrow. Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Have a great day. Take care, Amber.
You too.
All right.
See you later.
Take care, Russ.